Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this workshop on developing regional RSC groups in the UK. The link to the agenda for this session can be found in the SeptembRSE drive and in the chat, which is linked to from today's session, the timetable. The agenda is also going to be our note-taking area for the breakout rooms. For questions, please use the chat in this Zoom session. Just to quickly go through our agenda, our session today includes a short introduction about this special interest group, why we started it and what we hope to achieve. And then we'll have a few lightning talks from some RSC regional groups that have already been set up and been successful, and a lightning talk from those looking to set up a regional group. After that, we're going to go into breakout rooms by region. Then we'll all come back together here to have a look at the highlights of what was discussed and talk about future plans and next steps. So let's start with the introduction from me. My name is Claire Wyatt and I'm the RSC Community Manager in the UK, funded by the Southwest Sustainability Institute and based at the University of Southampton. Myself and a few colleagues from the community came together to create this special interest group because we'd come to the same conclusion that we believe regional groups would be a great idea for this community. So to introduce who is on this SIG, Marion, could you introduce yourself quickly, please?
Yeah, my name is Marion Weinziel. I'm an RSE in Durham, and I'm also a trustee of the society and RSE theme leader in NHCAR.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Cohen. I'm an EPSRC RSE fellow based at Imperial College London, and I'm also the lead of the RS London regional research software community, which we'll be hearing a little bit about shortly.
Thank you. Christopher?
Hi, I'm Christopher Woods. I'm Head of Research Software Engineering at the University of Bristol, and you may have noticed me around a little bit at the conference.
Thank you. And Kirsty?
Hi, I'm Kirsten Fring. I'm a project manager for the Software Sustainability Institute and also a trustee for the Society of Research Software Engineers.
Thanks, everyone. So that's the group that have been meeting for a good 6 months and discussing how we could facilitate regional groups across the UK. Recently, we submitted a proposal document to the trustee board, Society Trustee Board, asking if they could give us their backing to create this SIG and explore this idea. The trustees thought it was a great idea and are really happy to support this. So why have we been thinking about this? If we consider the layers of our community like a delicious Victoria sponge cake, and the bottom sponge layer is the local community at the institute level. The successful advocacy and lobbying activities in the last few years have led to the setup of RSC teams around the UK and supported the emergence of realistic career pathways for individuals looking to work within a research environment while focusing on software development. We have local groups established at quite a few university institutions now, with new ones arriving on the scene all the time. And we hope that local groups are including RSCs based in research groups at their institution in their networking and their training and social events to create one institutional RSC community. If we take our top sponge layer, we have the national level, which includes the society and the trustee board, acting as a central reference point for all RSCs who work with other national groups, petition the national funders, build relationships with other professional bodies, and of course, deliver an annual national conference. The trustees' purpose is to serve and deliver initiatives for all RSCs, no matter their contract type or their position in their institute. At that national level, we also have our Slack space where everyone is welcome, our website, Twitter, newsletter, etc. So adding regional groups to our community would be like the buttercream and jam layer in between local institutional community and the national community. It's the one layer we're currently missing, and we'd like to explore the option of adding this to the UK, along with what we believe the many benefits. So what do we think the regional groups would add to the RSC movement and the community? Well, we feel that the regional groups would fill that increasingly large gap between the national activities and events and the local communities. As the community grows ever larger, we can't all go to the annual conference. So regional groups would provide regular networking and training opportunities in those other 11 months. It may also encourage those RSCs who work outside of a local group to come along to the conference because they already know people from their region. It would allow RSCs to share knowledge and experience through presentations and workshops. They can advise new groups on how to navigate the common hurdles like recruiting in that region, or how to set up a software clinic for researchers, or how to gain more work across their institution. We hope after a time, it may lead to joint grant writing and outsourcing for certain skills and experience from within the region. This can all be explored and more in the breakout rooms, and we can take some ideas in a minute from the lightning talks that we will hear from in a few minutes. Along with the very tangible benefits that I've mentioned, and these next two words are very buzzy and used a lot, particularly at the moment in the news, but we're thinking about inclusivity and levelling up, creating networks that include universities that haven't always been included up until now. We hope it will encourage the RSCs who probably don't have that job title or know about the RSC movement from the post-92 universities to join the community. We consider that development of these communities can enhance awareness of the importance of research software engineering, provide new opportunities for RSCs, and increase scope for the development of high quality research software, even more widely within the UK's research community. It also gives local RSC leaders and RSCs additional scope in negotiating with their own universities when they hear and know what other universities in their region are doing. This isn't about recreating or replacing the regional groups that already exist. This is adding to with a strong RSC theme. Rather than a specific theme, we would like these regional groups to welcome all RSCs from all contract types, all level experience, and all institutions. Creating regional groups, we hope, will add a layer of security to the community as a whole. If something were to happen at the national level of the training and networking, the regional groups could step in and keep the community meeting, sharing knowledge, and keep the momentum going. So how will the society, the charity, support this? As I said, they've given their backing and they think it's a great idea. A special interest group backed by the society is supported, but still very much independent from the society. The society provides a set of policies so that you don't have to write them all again, like code of conduct, EDI, complaints, and they will support us in the establishment and publicity of this initiative via the website, newsletter, Slack, mailing list, etc. As a supported SIG, we have an online home on the society website rather than having to create our own website. We get a dedicated group email address so people can contact us, all of us at once, and a space to store our documents on the Google Drive. In exchange for that, the society asks that we regularly update the trustee board for two reasons. One, to include a great success, hopefully in the annual report, but more importantly, the trustees can provide advice and guidance at each stage. So unlike a working group, the SIG doesn't receive any annual budget from the society, but earlier this year, the society launched a small grant funding scheme that you may have seen advertised on Twitter and on Slack. That scheme could provide this initiative with startup funds. We would need to apply for them on a case-by-case basis, and it would go to a vote, like all applications do, to the trustee board. But the SIG members can absolutely help you write those applications and be your champion there. But if funding is a big showstopper for some regions, there is this scheme that we can apply to. Now, regional groups don't need to be a SIG if they don't wish to, but you can be if you'd like to, and you get those benefits that I just mentioned. So that's the lowdown on this special interest group and who we are and why we're doing this. Now we're going to hear from some regional groups that are already up and running. Jeremy, over to you.
Thank you, Claire. Thanks for the introduction. I'm just going to share some slides, which you can hopefully all now see. Okay, so I'm going to provide a brief introduction to Research Software London, or RS London as it's known, which is a regional research software community supporting researchers and RSCs in London and South East of England. Now, it's really important to highlight that this is very much focused as much on researchers and general members of the research community as it is on RSCs, because we think there's a lot that can be shared between researchers who perhaps don't consider themselves as RSCs, but also do work with software development as part of their research, and the RSC community where there are experts in building software and software best practices and so on. So this community was set up as a grassroots community. There's no direct funding, although there is funding through my RSC fellowship to support some of the events, but this is in general a grassroots community where people are contributing their time voluntarily. And really it was set up to try and bring together both RSCs and researchers from a wide range of institutions in London and the South East. We started off in late 2018 and the focus was originally on just the London region. And then we got a lot of interest from other institutions in the slightly wider South East region, and we decided to broaden things out to include these other locations. We focus on a range of activities which cover things like training, technical talks. We have an annual community workshop, which unfortunately has been slightly derailed by the events over the last 18 months, but we have had two iterations of that workshop so far, and we will be hoping to do more in 2022 and 2023, and then hopefully beyond that. The community events and activities, as I say, are partially supported by the RSC Fellowship, but we've also had support from other institutions within the region who have been funding things like providing catering for events and so on. So what are we actually trying to do with this regional community? One of the main things that we're looking at is extending networks. So we want to make sure that networks that were originally local to given institutions can be broadened, and that we can really reach out to institutions across the region, whatever their size or focus. We want to develop new collaborations. We've already seen some success in that. So one group that formed as part of RS London, actually a group of people that met through the RS London group, received some funding for a small networking grant related to some work that we were doing in medical imaging. We want to particularly support smaller institutions, and I think Claire alluded to this in her introduction. Particularly in the London region, there are several smaller institutions that are have particular focuses on certain domains. They tend to not have the critical mass of people working in the software area to support their own local groups, but they really have a lot of expertise they can contribute, and also there's a lot of opportunities that they can gain from being part of the community through training and other related aspects. We also see a lot of opportunity for sharing knowledge and resources. That's come through the events that we've run, but also more generally through discussions that develop through networking and collaborations. And I think this is a really great opportunity for regional groups, because obviously a lot of institutions have their own local internal sharing opportunities for things like running events and seminars and so on. But if we broaden that out, we really can take advantage of kind of economies of scale and really make the most of that opportunity to share knowledge across a wider area. And finally, I think something that's probably very much an aim across the research software community, not just in regional communities, but more generally, is to advocate for better research software. And that's something that I think we feel we can do more effectively in this larger group that we get from the regional community. So that's just a very quick introduction to RS London. Do go and take a look at the website if you're interested to find out more. And I will now hand back to Claire, who I think is going to introduce the next talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's great. Next, we have Supercomputing Wales. I've got three names against that: Colin, Ed, and Catherine. Would the real presenter please stand forward? Come on, Kath. Brilliant.
It's me going first. Hold on a second. Let me just share my slides. Okay, here we go. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name's Kath Roderick. I'm the Programme Manager for Supercomputing Wales. So what we are is a consortium of 4 universities, the universities of Aberystwyth, Bangor, Swansea and Cardiff. And we've come together under the umbrella of some funding that we have European regional development funds that come to us through Welsh Government. And that has invested in not only some upgraded HPC facilities that are in Swansea and Cardiff, but also really importantly, a cohort of research software engineers. And when we were applying for that funding, the key rationale that we gave for that is that the RSCs, of course, add a significant amount of value to the machine itself. So Supercomputing Wales has been running for a good few years now. We're really pleased to say that we've got a little bit more funding from Welsh Government to see us through to the end of next year. I'm now going to hand over to Colin in Aberystwyth to say a little bit more about what the RSCs do in practice. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's best to go on to the next slide then. Yeah. So just a few ways we've collaborated. That we don't find we actually have much common research, but we do collaborate a lot on both running and receiving trainings, both what we receive from our suppliers, and it's quite a lot of that was built into the grant that they had to do a lot of community benefits for us. We do, or we did until the pandemic, have fairly regular meetups of the RSCs at these events. We also have a joint CDT along with Bristol University in AI, machine learning and advanced computing. And we work a lot to support that CDT and the training that goes around that. In addition to research software engineers, we also have a load of systems administrators, and we regularly have the RSCs and the system administrators on the call together to discuss any issues that sort of cross over between those two, and to kind of try and facilitate the whole research community around this and to try and engage with government. We ran a joint conference in January 2020 down in Cardiff. So I think next slide. Ed, do you want to come in on this one, or do you want me to do it? So even there.
I can talk to that if you like. So yeah, a lot of the training that we've done, both we've delivered and received, has been done between multiple institutions. So we've delivered software carpentry, data carpentry workshops. We've also developed our own training in some topics that's not covered by those organizations, that we've delivered jointly, either as part of the CDT or to more than one of the 4 partner institutions. So that means it might be slightly more feasible to run workshops that have slightly less interest from any one institution, because you can make up numbers from a larger number of institutions. So yes, I mentioned the CDT. We have a joint CDT with Bristol University. This is in artificial intelligence, machine learning and advanced computing. And the support of Supercomputing Wales RSCs was a key factor in getting that CDT awarded. And we have a relatively strong program of skills training through the first year of that CDT on topics in scientific computing, research software engineering. So trying to make sure that they go through their PhD being able to write maintainable and sustainable software. We also have received training from the suppliers to Supercomputing Wales. So from Dell, from NVIDIA, Intel, Mellanox, now known as NVIDIA Networking. So that's as part of our agreement with them to provide our hardware. They've also been able to deliver some training, including a hackathon just before the pandemic hit. We were planning to have another one potentially, but that has stalled due to logistical issues around doing that remotely. So, but yes, that's another thing that we've been able to do as a wider group of RSCs across Wales. So I think that's probably probably the most RSCs that have been in the room was at our kickoff conference or kickoff event, but potentially the second largest number of Welsh RSCs that have been in a single room has been in that hackathon. And certainly the largest number of Welsh RSCs working on working on software rather than just talking. So yeah, should we go to the next slide? Kath?
Sorry.
So shall I hand back to Colin?
I was thinking this was actually more your area than mine.
I can talk about it. Yeah. So we having a cohort of RSCs that's been had funding through Welsh Government has meant that we've been able to allocate resource quite rapidly to respond to the challenge of the pandemic. So one way that we've done this is actually contributing to the modelling effort that's been done to facilitate Welsh Government's response. So Welsh Government policy is informed by modelling done at Swansea University. And while that is obviously research-led, it's led by an epidemiologist in the College of Medicine. A lot of the software work on that is done by the Supercomputing Wales Research Software Engineering team. And there was a talk by one of our RSCs, Dr. Ben Thorpe, yesterday about that. The recording is online. Also in Cardiff, we are doing, the Welsh universities are doing gene sequencing of COVID so that we can keep track of different variants as they emerge. And that's being supported by one of the Supercomputing Wales RSCs in Cardiff. I don't think there's a talk on that at this conference. So yeah, that's all of our slides. So that's some of the stuff that we've been doing as a distributed research software engineering team or regional research software engineering group within Supercomputing Wales. It's worth noting there are other RSCs active in Wales that are not part of Supercomputing Wales. So we are in contact with many of them, but they are more loosely attached. So they haven't been in a lot of these activities we've been discussing. So I think one of the things we could do was, with a regional RSC group as part of this workshop is to try and expand that to be more inclusive of people outside of this block of Welsh Government funding.
That's great. Thank you, Ed, Kath and Colin. Fantastic. Sorry, Kath, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying thanks. I'll stop the share now.
Thank you. Brilliant. And then we're on to RSC Southwest from Christopher Woods. Go ahead, Christopher.
Thanks, Claire. So I don't have any slides. I think that basically also shows, it kind of shows kind of the issues I think we have with RSC Southwest. So RSC Southwest is a story of how difficult it is to actually create and maintain and sustain a regional RSC group. So what is RSC Southwest? Well, it kind of started a few years ago as kind of a sort of an informal collaboration between Bristol, Bath and Exeter. And through these three universities, we were running lots of joint training exercises. So we'd have many, many training workshops. We were sharing training materials as well. And it was this sort of nice collaboration where effectively we were having materials developed, for example, at Bristol, were then taken by Bath. Bath then developed them and created them, made them much nicer, and then we stole them back again. And then because we'd had this sort of shared foundation of training materials, we were able to run shared workshops where effectively we could sort of, it's very easy to travel between the three universities. So we would put them on and then make them open to anyone within the local area. This worked really well, and we were able to sort of grow this informal network using this training sort of method. What it also did is it helped make RSC more visible in particularly Exeter. So obviously Bristol, because I had an RSC fellowship that started many, many years ago, that enabled the Bristol RSC group to grow very, very quickly. And we definitely probably the largest group in the Southwest. And what we were keen to do is kind of help other universities in the area also grow their RSC groups. So particularly with Exeter, with the training that we ran, that made RSC more visible. And then we also had this sort of second track where we're providing advice and support to senior management at those universities to show them how the RSC funding model could work, how you could manage it, how it could attach to different departments. And it's through some of that, and obviously huge amounts of hard work by people at Exeter itself, that they've now grown their sort of formal RSC group. Now, while RSC Southwest has been kind of good at doing these kind of things, the challenge, and I think the challenge of any regional RSC group, is that it really does depend on having the people there. So unless you've got sort of backing money that can sort of keep someone to organize and manage things, it's really dependent on who you've got in post. So pre-pandemic, James, myself and Ben at Exeter, we'd applied for money and we'd managed to get some money to run some sort of like proper joint launch activities for RSC Southwest. And then of course, along comes the pandemic, and then all of that gets completely shut down, which was a bit of a shame. And then coupled with that, you have things like James Grant moving on to Amazon. Wonderful post there. So we kind of lost our link into Bath. It took a very long time for the Exeter RSC group to sort of stand up and to get their head of post. And so that kind of fizzled with not being able to do things. So it's this thing of essentially with these regional groups, you need the people at all of the sites engaged. Otherwise it can become there's not much that you can do that's going on. But what I'm hopeful for is that now Exeter is stood up, and as we go through sort of the post-pandemic world and Bath begins to stand up, we could perhaps get back to what we were planning to do pre-pandemic, which is really reaching out, not just from these three core universities, but going out, further. So we're looking at Plymouth and others to really see how can we as a region take the large number of RSCs that are present in these larger universities and then help spread that training and that expertise down to the other universities in the Southwest region. But yeah, it's a challenging thing to do, and particularly at the regional level, it requires a lot of people to give a lot of free time when there's no pay for it. But the benefits are, if you can as a region get together, it means you can do these joint funding applications. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Christopher. That's brilliant. All right, on to Marion. What about the N8?
Yes. Okay, yeah, as I said in the introductions, I am the RSE theme leader of NHCAR, which is the Center of Excellence for Computationally Intensive Research. And the N8 is a partnership of the 8 most research-intensive universities in the north of England, which is Durham, Lancaster, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle, Sheffield, and York. I've written it down there because every time I say it, I will miss one university out. So as such, it's not really a fully regional group, because we're basically more or less limited in a lot of what we do to these 8 universities. So the idea is that this Center of Excellence basically supports computational intensive research in all universities. So we have theme leaders in digital humanities and digital health. We'll launch a machine learning theme very soon. And we also have a research infrastructure theme leader, and then myself. So the role was previously fulfilled by Kirsty as a RSE theme leader. And the idea is that we basically engage with the researchers and the other theme leaders. And we are also involved a lot in the governance. And an additional difference to the other groups that have presented before is that I'm actually board out. So I'm board out for 1 day per week to organize stuff for the RSCs. But after I've attended all the meetings and I've been through everything that's happening there, so then I'm basically free to do the other stuff. So we also got a new supercomputer recently, which is Beat, and chairing the Beat user group and the Beat support group is one of the activities that I'm doing. We have 8 Beat RSEs, which are the people who basically are there to support the researchers in using Beat, and as it's a special architecture, it's a Power 9 architecture, basically helping them port their code there. In addition to that, we have a Women in HPC chapter, which Kirsty started setting up and that I'm leading now. So we plan the launch in December. And so all of this basically belongs kind of to the package. And I hope that we're able to basically involve RSEs as much as possible, because building a community of research software engineers actually is in the strategy of NHCAR. And that is something that Kirsty started doing with a lot of activities that she started up and that I'm trying to continue. So we have the annual meetup events. I think they've happened in 3 different formats so far. So they started off as being really in person and people coming together and giving talks about the work that they do and having chats. Then we had, in the first pandemic year, we had still organized by Kirsty, I think 6 weeks or so of events happening, where every Thursday afternoon we would have, was it 1 or 2 hours of different topical discussions or presentations taking place. And then this year we had a fully virtual 1 or 2 hour event as a meetup event with presentations and discussions and speed networking happening. We also have the RSE leaders meetings in the NHCAR, and that we once per year we also invite aspiring leaders along to basically get people in there who want to be RSE leaders. We have mailing list. We have a very quiet Slack channel on the UK RSE Slack, but we also have a Beat Beat Slack where a bit more is happening. And we, the good thing about having something that's funded basically through the contributions of the 8 universities is that we have support for events. So we have Nikki, our communication manager, who can help people who want to set up a training course for the researchers. So we're approaching also the SSI fellows in the N8 so that they can basically get support if they want to get set something up. We're currently working on an RSE brokerage model. So where we basically, if we say, okay, in our group, we've got a lot of work on this and we don't really have the resources, maybe then RSE from another group could in some way be moved over or do a bit of that work for us. So we're now hoping to pilot this between Durham and Newcastle first, and Mark Turner is involved into this. And then there's also training, for example, the training provided by IBM for using our supercomputer. And so, but Yeah, so I'll come back to that after that. The next thing I wanted to show here is something from our website, where we basically also show for the researchers to look at if they need support. Okay, those are the groups we have in the NA, those are the RSE groups. And we have a directory as well, where RSEs can register basically and to say, okay, these are my skills and I'm in that group, so that researchers could come along and have a look at that. And then we have RSE case studies that showcase basically in a very nicely formatted way. So Nikki put a lot of work into that, or puts a lot of work into that. So where RSEs helped researchers, and we have case studies of beat RSEs, we have case studies of groups as well. So that is a very nice resource there. So yeah, training for RSEs is also one of our challenges, because the steering group says, okay, it's all very nice and we like to have the RSEs there and to provide training, but should we really put money into training the RSEs? So that's sometimes a bit of a challenge if it's not directly connected to BEAT. So they, for example, think it's not the responsibility to provide training in professional development or so. Another thing that can be a challenge is engaging embedded RSE. So we have some, so the RSE fellows giving talks on our meetups, but in the RSE community itself, it's a lot concentrated on the central groups or also embedded groups. And I've tried inviting people along. I've asked the other RSEs to invite people along they know about who are embedded RSEs, but so far we've not been that successful. And then there's, of course, what Chris mentioned before, getting the community to engage as well, getting them to maybe bring up their ideas. And so, of course, in our case, it's the being, okay, I'm hired basically for doing this. So I think they rely on that, but actually bi-directional thing where somebody would also say like, okay, I would like to do this, I would like to organize that, is not really happening. Then, as I described, okay, time, 1 day per week after having done all the meetings and all the other stuff and the BEAT stuff and the women HPC stuff is not that much. So how much can I put into also engaging embedded RSEs and doing all the RSE work? And our funding runs out in 1.5 years. So the question is, what happens after that? And how can we maybe also build something up in the region that's not limited to these 8 universities? So something where we can develop or can contribute to a truly regional group there. So, and that's me. Sorry if I went over time.
No, that's great. Thank you, Marion. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot to describe. Thank you. So next we're hearing from Mario in Edinburgh.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. You can see.
Yeah, I'm about to. There we go.
Yeah,
so,
that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so it's amazing to hear other people on the benefits and issues they're having are very similar to what's actually happening here in Edinburgh. So my name is Mario Antonioletti. I work for EPCC at the University of Edinburgh, but I'm also involved with the Software Sustainability Institute. I'm going to say a little bit about what we call the Community of Edinburgh RSCs, which is the name we came up with our effort here in Edinburgh. So let me talk a little bit about the setup. I mean, Edinburgh has got 4 universities, and that's the University of Edinburgh, which is the largest one. But we've also got Howard Watt and Napier and Queen Margaret universities. So most of the effort that we've been employing has been focused on the University of Edinburgh, although the University of Howard Watt showed some interest. And we're beginning to get some connections there, but then the pandemic struck, so things have gone a little bit quiet. The advantages of being located at the University of Edinburgh are partly to do with the fact that the Software Sustainability Institute, which has got their director based here in Edinburgh, that's Neil Shu Hong. And also we've got one of the bigger RSC groups at EPCC, which hosts the National Supercomputing Service. In fact, on the bottom right, you can actually see this Venn diagram, and this is a game you can play, which is quite interesting. If you put this out when we go back to face-to-face meetings, and you get people to self-identify or putting a sticky as to what group they belong to, you can get a good idea of where your community lies. I've done this for another one of the meetings we actually had, but this is for EPCC in particular. It's a game, but it's quite interesting. So in terms of our meetings, we started our effort in 2018. We decoupled into two groups, which is the community of Edinburgh RSCs and the Edinburgh carpentries. And there's a kind of symbiosis here where the training is provided to the carpentries, and the community of Edinburgh RSCs can actually help people become RSCs. But at the same time, at a later phase, they can become instructors and helpers at these courses. We also employed GitHub organizations for our infrastructure. And if you're setting up an RSC group, I recommend that we're doing it so that multiple people can participate in providing materials, and you're not restricted to institutional resources. The story so far, so Edinburgh University is a 5-campus university. It's not quite the same situation that Jeremy faces in London, but so the idea pre-pandemic was to work our way around the campuses, and we visited 3 out of 5. We've had 6 meetings, 5 of them face-to-face meetings and 1 virtual meeting when the pandemic struck. And the idea of actually visiting all these local places was to establish local contacts, to leverage local resources such as the booking of rooms, and to publicize future meetings, because in a sense they tend to know who's who in their own local communities. Although we've identified that these communities tend to be siloed, so they don't know each other, which is one of the benefits of actually having these meetings. The idea here is to establish a federation and then with local central meetings, but they can have local meetings. And the main benefit of all of this is for people to talk to each other and to get to know each other, so that they know who's doing stuff down the corridor, who's doing similar research, and establish collaborations. So the purpose of the meetings is to inform local RSCs about facilities and possibilities they can actually have access to, as I said earlier, establish collaborations. If you're a PI or a more senior person, you can recruit local talent. And once you get your legs going, you can actually act as a lobby group. So the barriers, well, one of the barriers is me, because I was one of the main people driving things, although I did actually have help from other people. But now I see Kirsty here, and I can lean on Kirsty. And Andy Turner is also based at EPCC, although we don't want to have too heavy an EPCC group. So I got busy during the pandemic, so we really need to establish a local committee. The other thing we should do is to establish a small budget. Rooms are free invariably, so that's not an issue. But getting teas and coffees and biscuits as an incentive for people to stay behind a meeting and to talk to each other, I think is an important part of the thing. Although we do have breakout sessions where people can talk to each other. So the amounts of money are small, roughly around £60 per meeting, but they do mount up. So to finish off with, the meetings have been well received by the community. The pandemic should have acted as an incentive, because people were in their homes and didn't actually have things to attend. Virtual meetings remove geographical boundaries, but that's only become established as we become more acquainted with how to deal with the pandemic. And the other thing is you can bring your own tea and coffee, so there are no subsidiary costs. But I think it's a paradigm worth pursuing for future meetings. So overall, I think this is an activity that's worth pursuing. So I'm going to start with Oba. That's me.
Thanks, Mario. That's really great. Thank you very much. So now for our last lightning talk from Northern Ireland. Donald, are you here? Yes, you are. Great. Oh, I think you might be muted. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And you can see my screen okay?
Yeah.
So
I
You
think we've
muted
lost-
yourself.
Sorry, you lost your audio then, just as you started talking.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Sorry, my internet connection's on a knife edge here. And now, can you hear me?
No, it's gone again. I think when you go to full screen, the
Okay.
yeah, it changes the yeah.
I just.
There's also an audio. Don't know. There's an audio setting in Zoom which automatically adjusts your microphone volume. You probably need to disable that.
Is that better now?
Yes, can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm that person with the audio issues.
Well, always happens.
And you can see my screen and hear me at the same time?
We can so far, yeah.
Fantastic,
yeah.
Amazing. So back to the NI tech sector. So essentially Northern Ireland is now 1 in 7 jobs in Northern Ireland is in the digital sector. So it's a massive part of our local economy. And of all available job opportunities in the UK tech sector, 15% are in Northern Ireland, which is above the UK average of 13.4%. And digital tech roles make up 27% of all available jobs in Belfast. So the available jobs are just over 7,700. And that's largely focused on kind of cybersecurity. So it's seen as a cybersecurity capital. It's the #1 international investment location for foreign direct investment from US cybersecurity firms. And the cybersecurity sector, which is focused on the centre that I'm part of, CSIT, contributes 161 million to the local economy each year. And the city area is home, Belfast, the capital of Northern Ireland, is home to 84% of all Northern Ireland cybersecurity firms. So it is largely focused around Belfast, but there are other cities such as Derry and towns such as Strabane. And it's ranked only behind London in the UK. And 9th globally within the top 25 tech cities of the future. So there's a massive kind of growth. If you look back whenever CSIT was founded, about 11 years ago, there were approximately 80 people working in cybersecurity, and now there are over 2,000. So in terms of establishing a Northern Ireland chapter, I have to, any kind of talk I do regarding my fellowship, I have to be honest that before the fellowship, I had never heard of RSC. And I think that's kind of one of the key problems that we have to overcome. There was no RSC role. There are no RSC roles in either of our 2 universities. And so there's no representation. But we've kind of overcome the first hurdle because we now have 2 RSC fellows, myself and Andrew, both from Queen's, which when you bring in kind of £1.1 million of funding in a university, it kind of makes them sit up and listen, and certainly gets people's attention. So when I can identify RSC roles, I think we're maybe at the start of the journey that other universities were maybe 10 years ago, where there were lots of people doing RSC, but not necessarily called an RSC. So research fellows or sysadmins or whatever they were. So we need to kind of identify who is doing this work, not only within the university, but then the local tech sector as well, because a large part of these companies, so you have ARM, NVIDIA, Liberty, Allstate, a lot of them have their research centers here. So there are RSCs within industry. So it's not just university. And I think that's kind of one of our, because we are a small region. We see here, there are 4 universities in Edinburgh and we have 2 in all of Northern Ireland. So key is working with industry. So getting industry kind of buy-in, not only to kind of tap into their resources in terms of training, but also the people who are doing the RSC work. And then we have the Belfast City deal. So lots of cities across the UK were promised funding. And as part of this, we're getting kind of more supercomputing infrastructure, which will hopefully bring RSC roles. So we want to establish and develop an RSC regional chapter. Obviously, that'll kind of start with Queen's, but then there's also the University of Ulster and then the local industry as well. But we want to learn from similar regions. So there are lots of kind of cities across England, Wales, and Scotland who maybe have faced the same problems or maybe kind of relatively similar in makeup. So we'll learn kind of the pitfalls and the do's and don'ts. And if you could do it again, what would you do differently and how to make this succeed? Host RSC events and offer potentially all island. I brought this up in my RSC interview. Obviously, the politics of Ireland is kind of a slightly touchy subject, so it's something I wanted to kind of steer away from. But there is a potential all-island approach, because we're moving towards all-island cybersecurity, and so there's a software development institute called Nero in the south. So there is a potential for kind of working on an all-island basis, and also we're fantastic Guinness, so why would you not want to host RSC events here? So we look forward to kind of talking to other people from other RSC regions and cities about kind of their advice about setting up a local RSC chapter.
Great, thank you very much. Hopefully you'll get loads of advice and lessons learned and today and going forwards, along with the members of the SIG. We can certainly meet with you separately after this. Okay, so over to my colleague Marion. We're going to go to the breakout rooms, I think.
Yes, just a very short intro what's supposed to happen in the breakout rooms. So we have a number of breakout rooms predefined, and we would like you to sort yourselves basically into the region you think you belong to or you would like to belong to. So we didn't want to pre-assign, because there might be some discussion. There will be a couple of facilitators, so thank you everyone who's co-host here who volunteered to champion this and champion their regions. They will lead the breakout rooms, and it would be good to also define a note taker. So if you scroll down in the document that I've posted several times in the Slack, I hope everybody's got it. There is a number, so there are links where you can click on and get to your part in the note taking document, and then can put your name and your institute. And there's also a number of questions, a large number of questions actually. So these are kind of things that you might want to discuss, but feel free to discuss your own questions. This is about finding out, okay, what do we think we need? What do we think we want? What do we not need? What would be next steps for forming a group? In order to not have too small rooms, we have regions that might seem a bit large, like the north or the south. So you might want to split that up, but you can decide whether you would like to keep the discussion in that room, or if you strongly feel you want to split away from the northwest or the northeast. So there are, I think, 2 spare breakout rooms that you could move into. So because we don't have that much time left, I'll let you go into your rooms now. If you have any questions or so, just ping us. I think, Claire, you will stay in the main room here, or will you go?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can always come back into the main room and ask Claire if there are any questions. So see you 10 past the hour. So now I have to find my room. Long list.
Just to repeat the messages that I put into the chat, if anybody's having problems moving to a breakout room, if you put a message in the chat, we can manually move you to a room, but otherwise you should be able to see the breakout rooms icon in the Zoom toolbar, and you should be able to move to your chosen room.
My room is always skipping away when I want to click on it.
Do we want, Jeremy, do we want a whole 10 minutes, or Marion, for highlights, or should we give people another 5 minutes chatting?
I'm afraid if we have that many rooms, that less than 10 minutes will not be enough for every room to report back.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. We just want the highlights, don't we? We don't want.
Yes. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had good discussions, and I hope you were able to kind of find a team of people who might be willing to move this forward, or at least define some next steps. So we're kind of limited in time, I think, because this Zoom meeting is needed at 5 minutes to the half hour. So let's go quickly through the reporting. So is there anybody from Scotland who can give a short summary of what was discussed?
I volunteered, Kirsten.
I was just trying to unmute myself. Yeah, we had a nice chat about the kind of the barriers. So there is a group in Scotland beginning to take place. Scotland's obviously quite big, so it's a long way to travel between things. So actually online working works quite well, but having a mix of like in-person meetings where you actually get to know people, but then keeping it going online can work really, really well. And then there's challenges around, so things that would be useful would be things like platforms like GatherTown or Zoom, things like that, paid for and existing all the time that we could use, and advice about where to get little pots of money for teas and coffees and things like that, because I think that's probably a common problem.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is North. Lucy, you volunteered.
Hello. Yeah, so we had, I think, decent coverage of the North with the participants there. So we had people from STFC in Durham, Manchester, Leeds, and myself from Northumbria. And yeah, we had a chat, I guess, about that being a very big region and where Yorkshire would sit within it, whether people in Yorkshire would want their own group or whether they'd want to be part of the Northwest or the Northeast. I discussed a little bit about Northumbria and how we are kind of right at the beginning of our RSE journey, and about how having a regional group, I think, would really help support our efforts in growing that at Northumbria. And then we discussed the main output was that we are going to have a future meeting, which is a little bit less time constrained. We'll put together a doodle poll. So anyone who wants to be part of that meeting, we'll send a link out. I think Marion is going to send a link out. And then anyone who wants to be part of that discussion around RSC in the North can join us for that discussion.
Thanks for the summary. Midlands, can somebody summarize what was discussed there?
Yeah, I can do that. We just had 3 of us, 2 from Warwick and 1 from Birmingham. So just a small group, but we definitely thought there was some potential to have events that would, be more than what an individual university could offer, and to help with networking and particularly, help to sort of communicate across the aisles between different types, people working in very different areas, like the arts compared to HPC and so on. We thought of a feasible sort of aim for us would be to aim for a one-day workshop that we could sort of market as a low-cost regional conference that might be attractive to people maybe in the East Midlands as well, who we don't have so much contact with yet. Yeah, so there is potential for some funding there, so we're going to look into that and keep talking, perhaps to aim for February or something like that.
Great, it's great to hear that actual concrete plans are being made. So South, who would summarize the South discussion?
I can go. So we had participants from Imperial College London, Reading, UCL, Southampton, and National Archives and Suffolk. And so RSC London is already a big part of the regional group, but as a whole, we also felt that we would really benefit from more regional events that are a bit further south, to incorporate the more local groups in Southampton, Reading, and so on. So there's a definitely huge interest in regional activities, and we're thinking of maybe doing some monthly online meetings, so to save everyone travel, and then also perhaps meet in person some more to build a community and create that support with lightning tools, technical tools, exchange of resources, that sort of thing. So there's definitely scope for action in the South. Okay.
Great. And separate from that, Southwest had its own breakout room.
Yeah, so we just had us in the breakout rooms, myself and Matthew from Exeter. And we just basically talked about the challenges of setting things up in the Southwest at the different stages that the various universities in the Southwest are at. But yeah, we have some ideas of what to do moving forward over the next 6 months, and really just trying to kickstart some of the training activities again and sort of get things back on track.
Great, thank you. Wales, who would like to summarize from? Oh, Chris, did you want to say something?
Sorry.
Okay, just saw you unmuting. Yeah, Wales, please.
So we had some discussions around the potential for another Welsh conference of RSCs, or around research software in Wales at least. So there's discussions about the potential scope of that, and then around some of the difficulties of the Welsh geography when it comes to a regional group. So we've got the north is very well connected to the northwest of England, the south is very well connected to the southwest of England. So having an all Wales grouping that meets physically might be challenging in terms of a location that's accessible to everyone. So we were discussing some options around that.
Okay, thank you. Northern Ireland, did we have a discussion there?
So this was the inaugural meeting of the Northern Ireland RSC chapter, and we had all of the Northern Ireland RSCs in one room at once. So we just discussed ideas of promotion of the RSC role and career path within Queen's. It's not really identified. And then we're going to meet next week because we have training to provide. So we're looking at kind of forming that through the software carpentries and then using that sort of as a vehicle for recruitment. And then within ECES, we have a careers officer. So that's my school of computer science, and then also maths and physics that Andrew's part of. We have careers officers, and their kind of job is essentially to coordinate placements, but then also to provide job opportunities essentially. So it's trying to kind of divert some engineers from kind of industry back into kind of academia and kind of show it's a career path. And then also through postdocs. So I mean, I was in the position in March before my fellowship started, in that you were told month to month whether you could come back. Essentially, you're on precarious contracts. But there's a lot of people doing that work, and it's whether it's in computer science or in maths and physics, where Andrew's from, in terms of data science. Essentially, they're doing kind of data engineering under another term. It's still research software engineering. So the idea that there's potential full funding for that and funding opportunities. And then we were planning to liaise with other RSCs, some other regional groups, to help organise and deliver training and networking events to strengthen ties to the rest of the UK.
Thank you, great. And East, who would like to summarise?
It's going to have to be me because I was the only person in the room.
Oh no.
A bit lonely. And so, yeah, one of the conclusions was, well, maybe we should just join with RS London in the meantime. And then the second question is, what are the benefits of a local group over just attending somebody else's virtual online conference? One of the opportunities we have in that area is the Silicon Fen. So there are a number of large industrial research organizations like Microsoft Research, GlaxoSmithKline, AstraZeneca, etc. And so can we, recruit is a good word, can we involve the RSEs who may not identify yet as RSEs, although I know that Microsoft Research do promote that. Can we bring those people in and make a local community that way? So in the meantime, there's probably no East RSE chapter, but there could be in the future.
Okay, great. Feel free to reach out to us if you would like somebody else to help with this, so that you don't have to do it on your own.
Thanks.
So thank you everyone for the summaries. It's great to hear that there are actually concrete plans being made and some meetings being planned in the future. I'll hand over to Jeremy now to wrap up this session.
Okay, thanks, Marion. So just very briefly, because we've only got a couple of minutes, I just want to firstly thank everybody who has helped to organise and to run this session, particularly all of our regional champions, the people who have agreed to join us and to help to facilitate the discussions. It's great to hear from the feedback from everybody that there are some concrete plans being made, and I think it's really nice that there's scope to set up potentially some new groups, but also to kind of develop what we already have in terms of the groups that already exist. So I hope that everybody has found this a useful exercise. The regional special interest group, one of our aims going forward is to actually help facilitate the setup of new groups. So as Marion said, do get in touch with us. We're very happy to help people. That's maybe just in terms of giving you ideas or kind of discussing through things with you that you're planning to do. But there's also potentially options to get funding through the society, through the small grants for events that the society is offering, and related routes. So do certainly reach out to us if you've got things that you want to discuss, or you have plans to set up a group and there's any way that we can help. Otherwise, I think I'm very much conscious that we need to wrap up. So I'm going to just say thank you again to everybody, and I hope that you will be able to move forward with your regional activities and find it a useful opportunity to start getting regional groups set up. And with that, I think we will close the session. So thank you all very much.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.